You're muted, Rumesa.
I was talking to Davey. Hello, Davey.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, good. Okay, I think we can start. Are you ready, Safa? We haven't, checked sharing options or other stuff, but let's dive in and see what's happening.
Okay. So
But first, welcome again. Another office hours session. Today's office hours session is dedicated for integrating OpenAI API and building an AI-powered app in Draftbit. And Sefa will walk us through in this journey.
yeah, I will do my best.
Please feel free to ask any of your questions during the session. You can ask your questions by yourself. Just raise your hand and hello. Okay, Mary's note taker. Welcome. Okay. Yes, I think we can dive in. Safa.
All right. So first of all, welcome you all. And let me share my screen. And please do let me know if you can't read my screen. I will act accordingly. Okay. Can you see my screen? And
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So yeah, today I'm just trying to cover how we integrate OpenAI's APIs in Draftbit. And I don't know if you have ever played around with these APIs. They're like pretty powerful tools, but due to the limitation of time, I'm just going to go through the chat integration. But to be honest, all of them are like very, very similar to each other. And let's, 1 second. Oh, sorry. Come back to the APIs. Oh, it's not going back. So today I'm just going to show you how we implement the chat integrations, and I'm just going to do it by 3 ways. Like the first way is going to be the easiest way, but the most unsecure and not suggested way, which is making direct calls from your front end. And I'm just going to talk you through why it's not a good practice, and I will just show you some other implementations later on. The first, let me go through the first implementation first, then I will just talk you with a little custom code related implementation that I did. So let's take a look at the chat completion API. So like if you go to the OpenAI's documentation, it's really, really helpful, and usually helps you to play around with these APIs with a Postman or some other tools. So it's just basically very similar to what we do in Draftbit, like in our API calls endpoint. It's just gonna be a post request to this endpoint with this data model, and just gonna take the response and just use them in your screen. So for this demonstration, I've just created this empty screens, and just to let you know, these are all based on our example screen, so you can just do it yourself. Like you can go ahead and choose any other style and modify it yourself. So I just used this screen for this demonstration and just play around with this a little myself. So basically in this screen, we have a list that will show us our results, and one for the users messages and one for the GPT results. And we also have a like text input and an icon button. And on the screens level variables, I'm just using a string variable for the text input, and a loading state, which is a Boolean, and an array called messages. So other than that, like again, like if you go to the ChatGPT's endpoints, from the platform.openai.com, you just first have to go ahead and just create an API key. And once you do that, it's just gonna shows you once. So if you don't copy this to somewhere else, it's gonna be hidden. So I've already done that, but you can just create unlimited keys from here. And once you have your keys, you have to use that key to make calls to the API. And like starting with the first direct call from the front end. For this, I just created a API service from the Draftbit model. But for this demonstration, like if you want to make calls directly from your front end, it's not a best practice because you have to use your key within the front end. So I have to type this here. So if this app is a web app, like it's gonna be very easily seen by the other users. The other users can take your OpenAI key and use it in their applications, which is not a secure thing because it's gonna charge you a lot. And but like in mobile, it is a little more secure than the web app, but there are some tools that will let users to take the advantage of this and just be able to read the keys. But anyway, like knowing that it's not a very secure thing, but if you're building an app just for you and it's not going to be a demonstrated to other people, maybe you can just go ahead and just create this implementation yourself. So first of all, I use this endpoint, and then after that, I just come back here, created the chat completion endpoint, and I assigned the variable here. And for the request body, I'm going to use the GPT 3.0 Turbo. You can use other models you want. And for the messages, it's going to be an array of objects, which I'm going to show you in a little. And like, for example, let's try this. When I make a request, oh God, why is it taking so long? There you go. This is the result from this. Like, for example, is the result, the response from the OpenAI is just how can I assist you? So, like knowing this, let's see how we integrate it in directly in the screen level. So for this, I'm just gonna use the icon button, so nothing else will be same. But for the list here, I remember I created the screen variable called messages, and for the data of that list, I'm using this list. And for example, if in this messages it's an object array, and I'm going to use screen functions to modify these messages, and it has only two properties called from and the text. And if the from is you, it's just going to show the you view. If it's not view, it's going to show the assistant view. So let me also show you the screen variables. Shall I do that first? Let me show you the actions first, then I will go through the screen variables. So when we click on the icon button, so what's going to happen? So we have got 8 different things, actions here. So first of all, I am calling a message called append to messages, and it's going to take the new input text value and just add it at the end of the messages array by the help of this message append to the messages. So take a look at this first. So basically what I do, I take the messages and I'm just gonna add the from and the text value and add it at the end of the list so that we can continue our conversation with the API. And later on, I just use the name updated messages and set the new messages with this updated messages. And after that, I decided to clear the input text value because every time I want to like ask another thing, I want the text box to be clear. And then I set the loading state to true and make this call to the API. And for this to call this API, I just have to make some conversions. So I use this updated messages that I created here, and I just convert those messages. So let me show you how I convert those messages. It takes this array. The first item is always going to be your helpful assistant. This is the part that you can say to your endpoint, saying that yeah, you're a helpful assistant who is specialized in math or like some other things. Or for example, you can tell if you're trying to build a child app, you can say that you're a assistant that's going to talk to a child that is 10 years old. So all of your answers has to be according to that. So like, don't use some scary verse kind of thing. So this is the part that you have to tell your API. So later that, you're just gonna send the array of messages. So if the message is from us, if this is from the user side, we just have to say a role user, as you can see in here. And the content is gonna be just the message that you're gonna send it. It's just pretty simple conversion that we did here. And after that, after we make this call, we just set the loading state to false. And then we have to do something with this. We have to rearrange the messages with the new response that we get from the API. And let me show you how I did it. So updated messages is going to be, I'm calling this implemented response function that I created. So basically, it's just gonna set the messages of set messages is my screen variable, so that I can directly access to it from the screen variables. I don't touch the previous messages, but for the rest, if this is the response from the API, I'm just gonna set the prompt to ChatGPT and the text for the context. So let me show you how it works. So, hello. I have a loading state and just got the recent message. Can you tell me a joke? And yeah, this is a conversation. You can keep asking questions based on your conversation. It's just gonna be handled on the ChatGPT side. Yeah, this is, as you can see, it's pretty easy implementation. But the thing is, as I told you, it's not a very secure way to implement this because your endpoints is always going to be visible to the public. So let me show it to you here. If someone is gonna use this, and can you tell another one about dogs? So it's basically it's supposed to make another joke about dogs. So certainly is a dog themed joke for you. So it's just a conversation. It's not just gonna make a request every time we make a new thing. So as you can see in our network tablets, we have make this call to the API, and down here we will be able to see our token, and that's why I don't suggest you to do it. But as I told you before in the beginning, it's always something that you can do if this is an app that you just want to use yourself. And yeah, this is the 33% of our app. So I've got two other skills that I've done here, but let me tell you a little more before I dive into this part. The majority of the code that I got for these screens are coming from this repo. I suggest you take notes. Maybe I can share it on my channel here. Here's the messages. It's a pretty powerful library that you can use to integrate OpenAI and some other AI tools in an Expo world. And yeah, as you can see, it not only supports OpenAI, just cloud and core and some other AI tools, and as well as the image generation tools. You can just go through their installations and like play around yourself in your local environment and easily integrate this information to the Draftbit. But again, as for the demonstration, I'm just gonna show you how I implemented the GPT-4 chat of this AI. And let me show it to you first. In the direct call, as you might have already seen, for example, tell me a story. I make this request. I'm just waiting for it to complete all the response, and then I just receive them directly. But you must have already used OpenAI. Like their console doesn't work like this. The words streaming to the front end so that we can see it writing our answers along the way. So when you use the post request, it happens like that. But when you use your custom backend, it doesn't do that. So for this demonstration, I also created another backend, custom backend, and let me share it to you. Here is it. You can access the code directly. So everything that I'm going to do in this demonstration, you'll be able to access those. So let me bring the code in. So it's a pretty simple Node.js server. In our in our index, we're just gonna create a very simple one, and we are using a new route called chat, and inside that we have a GPT. This all of this code is taken from the repo that I just told you, but this is a very clean version of it, just to allow you to use the GPT API. So once
Thank you, Safa, by the way. It's very handy for our users, I guess. This
exactly.
repo.
This is a very clean version. If you're not gonna want to worry about the other AI tools, you just go ahead and just use this backend that I created for you. And in the package JSON, you have already got these scripts. So first of all, we have to build the code. So yarn build. Once we're done that, we will have a distribution folder, which is the compiled version of our TypeScript files. And later on, we just have to start yarn start. So our backend is now running on our local host. So you can access it by going to the local host and 350. There you go. Hello world. It's running on that. But how are we supposed to access our local environment from Draftbit? So this is where we use ngrok. I don't know if you used ngrok before. This is I already created the code here. So like first for that we have to create another terminal, and all you have to do is yarn ngrok, and the command is here. And if you don't have ngrok installed on your devices, you can go ahead to their website and install the terminal, client terminal for you. But let me tell you briefly what it does. It just allows you to access to your local hosts from internet. So basically, this is the new link that it gave us. But whenever we make a request to this endpoint, it just comes to our local host. So let me try to open this. There you go. It's the same old thing. So it's gonna be here. So let's take this new link that we have used here, and let's go to our custom code here. For this second screen, I just copy and pasted everything I've seen here on the client side of this implementation. So again, like this is something that you can do. This is how we integrate new stuff to Draftbit in the experts fold. Like we first run their code entirely from the screen, and then we try to convert this to our components and stuff, which I'm going to show you a little later. So for that, I just copy and pasted everything I've seen there and created a custom component. So this is going to be rendering entire screen for me. So, and I just use the domain here. Maybe Rumesa, we can share the custom code for these screens as well afterwards. That maybe people can take a look.
Yeah, sure. We should do that.
This. Yeah, and there were some helper functions that I've used here, but like I didn't want to bother to create global functions just for this. But you can clean up your code. You can move all these things to the custom functions and call them from there. But again, for the purpose of this demo, I just add them on the top of the functions here. And before I dive in, I forgot to tell you the packages that we have to install to make it run. So remember, like when you in ChatGPT, you ask the AI to create some, for example, code and stuff, it just generates some unique looks. It's not just going to be a plain text. So they do it by the help of the markup language. So in order to display it beautifully, we use the markup display component here. So that's something that we have to install. React Native get random values. It's again used within the app, within the custom code. The Xbox report It's not necessary. I just want to be able to copy the ChatGPT results from the app because you might want to use those results. But again, it's not compulsory thing. And React Native SSE, so it's a library that allows you to make secure calls to the your local host via ngrok. So it's something necessary for you to install. And let's take a look at the code again. I'm not just going to go through every single detail here, but again, what it does, very briefly, we have a render. We have a keyboard avoiding view, and at the bottom of that view, we have a text input that allows you to enter your text, and a button to make a call to the API. On press, we're just going to call this chat function, and other than the rest of the stuff is the list or like some empty view. You can just go ahead and take a look at the code itself. This is already copy pasted code. And the magic happens here. So I showed you my domain here, and with the event source of this React Native SEC, we create our request. So we're just gonna make a request to my domain here with the chat GPT, and we're just gonna send the body along with this. And this is the function. You don't have to know everything about this function, but what this function does is just make a request to the ChatGPT and get the results and update the screen variables accordingly. And in the screen, we have a loading state, an input state for our input, a scroll view reference for you to scroll, and OpenAI messages, OpenAI response. So you can, again, go ahead and see. And yeah, let's take a look at the implementation. Let's go to the custom backend. As you can see, I haven't done anything but adding a custom code here. And in this custom code, I'm just gonna call this chat component that I've created. I've copy pasted from the library here. And let's start. Hello. Oops. This is course issue. Like I have to run this on iOS preview. Sorry. Oh my God, why is it taking so long?
So in back preview, you have a force issue.
Yeah, I didn't want to bother. I didn't want to waste time solving the course issue, but for the web view,
Whitelist.
because I'm using my custom endpoint, it was not course enabled, so I just have to modify that.
I mean, that would be great if you, if you can show our users how to at build.draftbit.com in a whitelist sometime.
Hello. Let's say hello and start chat. Oh, did I not update the endpoint correctly? Let me see my code here. I must have not saved my endpoint correctly. So let's library and go here. Yeah, I forgot to save the file. And just let you know, every time you run this ngrok, this links always change. So every time you make a change, you have to copy it again. Okay. Hello. I don't know. So why? So maybe it's because of my internet. It's supposed to be very, very fast.
Back to Open Listener.
Yeah. Let's take a look at ngrok's logs here. Yeah, I got. Oh, so it's still receiving response from called hello. Why is making response this long? So weird. Oh God, it's close. If this is not going to work, I'm just going to move on to the next example because it's not something that we want you to use anyway. It's not
That's okay.
allowing you to use the Draftbit powerful builder here. Let's try it again. Can you tell me a joke? Let's see if it's going to give us a joke. It's weird. It's supposed to be fast.
Before that, it was working perfectly, by the way. You showed me.
Exactly. I don't know why the endpoint taking so long to return results. Is it here?
I mean,
I see what's for this.
what was the problem?
For this and this is my bad again. For this backend to be working, we have to use Node.js version 18. So just make sure that you're using NVM use 18. If you don't use NVM, just make sure that you're using the latest version of the Node. Then yeah, we have to start. That's my bad. I'm sorry. So let's restart our ngrok.
No worries. I mean, trouble shooting
Exactly.
in a live session.
Exactly. That's things happen. Okay. So we are sure that it's working. Let's update our backend. Again, then save. We still have time. Can you tell me a joke? Oh, God, what's wrong with me? So sorry.
No worries. That happens all the time. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a joke. Thanks, God. This one.
Yeah.
As you can see, the words are coming now as it's shown in the ChatGPT console. This is happening because, like, by the help of the streaming feature of the ChatGPT. So when you make your calls, where is it? To this endpoint using the body, the stream, it's just gonna stream the text like as if they're streaming a video or an image or an audio, but instead this time it's just streaming the texts. So this is why, like, if you want this words to come in one by one, unfortunately, you definitely have to use a custom backend. Okay, so like you have seen this custom backends already, so let's dive into simple chat. So like this is the way where we combine the two things that we have seen here. So let me show my screen first from the preview, then we will demonstrate. For this demonstration,
So this demonstration, apologies. So for this demonstration will be the optimum, the optimized way of using
exactly. So like
OpenAI.
yeah, like there's no worries doing that on the custom backend because like you can just go ahead and play around with this. You can play around with the styles and everything here, but it's just it's not gonna allow you to use the power of Draftbit. Like you don't wanna try like code to design your app. So instead, I've created this wrapper component. So it's gonna be a less shorter component. It's only 218 lines of code. But what it does is just gonna wraps the logic the ChatGPT logic around our components. So let me tell you how I did it. So in the screen, instead of defining my variables on the code level, I'm just gonna create those things on my front-end model. So again, I have a loading state. Instead of hard coding those variables inside the code, I just created this OpenAI messages array and OpenAI response array. So after that, I again, like as if I did in direct code thing, this is exactly the same. I just copy and pasted everything. As you can see, here on the top of my list, I'm using my custom code. So let me tell you what I did here. So I have another library called wrapper. And inside this wrapper, I'm just sending some variables from my screen level to the backend, to this wrapper client. And inside this, I'm just gonna call the children. So this children allows me to render whatever I had in the Draftbit builder inside the custom code. So that's why this list is under the custom code. So basically, it's like you can think of this as a fetch component. Like when you have a fetch component on the top of the list, you just get the data from the fetch component and just render on the list. And this is very similar to that. And yeah.
So that minimizes the code that you're writing, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through the wrapper again, but let me tell you, if you're okay with this, if you're like totally understand what's happening here, it's just pretty simple. And in the list, right now, I'm just instead of console, let me remove console. I'm just rendering the OpenAI response messages. This is exactly what we had this in the custom backend. It was using the OpenAI messages property to list, but right now, since I'm using the builder, I'm using the same variable here. And then we have got a view, U view, and the assistant view. And inside the assistant view, we have a markdown. So let me demonstrate first, then we can go through the code again.
By the way, please do not hesitate to ask your questions if you have any.
We can answer them immediately. So there you go. We have got our builder and our list, and everything is rendered like this. And yeah, we can tell, oh, there's a styling error. Hello, can you tell me a joke again? There you go. Right now, I've used, again, I forgot to update the ngrok domain. Great, let's just refresh. Tell me a joke. Yeah, as you can see, we are using the streaming power of the backend, and we're using the designing power of Draftbit, and we combine them together within this screen. And like you can see, for example, create a JavaScript function that, for example, generates a unique UID. As you can see, it's just using the markdown language, and like within that, you can render your code accordingly. You don't have to worry about the styling of the responses here when you use the markdown language. So yeah, so let me show you how I did it again. Like you already seen how we sent the variables here in the chat component, and then Let's go to wrapper. In my component, I got the children and the theme from the screen level and got these implementations here. And then the rest of the stuff is measure of the stuff is the same as we use in the other component. But what I did here, I have another flex, and inside that flex, I have a scroll view, and I rendered my list inside the scroll view. And then I have got my buttons and everything, and which is gonna call the chat function that is already created on the other component that I've copy pasted. So this is pretty very similar to what we did in the previous custom code. But again, it's just gonna take the stuff that was created by our builder and render it within this code. So it's because you don't have to worry about that styling that much here. But again, yeah, unfortunately, there is no way that you can do this without any custom code touching. But as you can see, it's not very hard to do. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to show you here, like unless you have questions.
Yes, please, Davey.
Thank you very much for the demonstration. I do have a question though. I'm a Node tech founder, so obviously everything you show me, the second version was like overwhelming to me. I don't even know if I'm going to try to understand it because I felt there's just too much at once. The third version looked great, so maybe this was going to be easier. But right now, I've already implemented OpenAI using the first version, which is obviously super easy, obviously not super secure. Is there a way using the first version that I can just hide the key just to be able to run my MVP up to the point where we need a massive upgrade on everything and maybe switch to something a bit more advanced? Because I'm using it, it works well, generating images or text, but I have this key probably that is visible that I didn't know. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The thing is, there's no way for you to hide it completely securely. Yeah, you can put this key in your backend, and you can only return those information when an authenticated user comes in. Yeah, you can just bring the key from your Zano backend or any other backend, but as long as you make that request to the OpenAI endpoint directly from your front end, yeah, that key is vulnerable from that point. Like if someone wants to take that key, they can take it. So yeah, for some reason, like you definitely have to implement some kind of backend and just call the API directly from your backend.
Okay.
There might be some other easier, like you can use exactly the same thing. For example, I think you're using Xano for the backend, right? You can create an endpoint on your Xano. You can make the same API call that you're doing from the Draftbit UI using the key to the Draftbit and just take the exact response and send it to your front end. But again, yeah, it's not gonna be it's not gonna allow you to stream the words or the images or anything, but it's gonna be a secure way. But it has to come through the backend. So in your Xano backend, just create an endpoint, like for example, GPT, ask GPT, and if from that endpoint, make a request to OpenAI with the information that you just saw here, and get that response without touching it. Just send it back to your user who's requested that endpoint. So that, and then use it within your screen. That's gonna be the like one of the easiest way that you can do it in an easy way. Yeah.
Okay, so you completely move the API, the OpenAI endpoint from the front to the back. So you're connecting it straight with Xano and not with Draftbit anymore.
Let me show it to you like in a very briefly. 1 second. I just okay. Let me log into here. It's a client app, so I don't want to show any data here. But for example, let's create an API point here and like saying that start from scratch, like ask GPT we are calling, and yeah, let's use a get request from here. You can make it authenticated. You can come here, and from here you can make a request, external API request, And you might have already known the import CURL request of Xano. You can just copy here and paste it here. And yeah, it just fills in everything for you. And from this moment, all you have to do is to change this key here. And this is gonna be the secure way to make this call. So you just have to return this API 1 result as the response of this message, and you will be good to go. I hope it's clear.
Yes, super clear. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to use for the safety.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, if you don't care about streaming of the words and stuff, it's something easy that you can do. Any other questions? Hi, Deborah.
So thank you again as well for this information. My question is a little off subject. Is it okay to ask that now, or shall I wait till you do something else?
Let's see if anyone else has a question about this subject. If no, we can just go ahead and answer your question.
I had one.
Okay, go ahead, Johnny.
I just wondered if you could give a little more explanation into your custom code where you use children props in the expression and stuff.
Of course. Let me come back here and let me show.
Right, it's actually right there.
Exactly. So you're wondering how this is happening, right?
I just wanted to see how you laid it out and kind of like a high level breakdown of what's happening there.
Okay, so let me show you what's happening in the code level side. So it's going to be much easier for you to understand. So for example, in here, in this custom code that we have library chat without any children, what it does is just renders this boundary of custom error boundary, and within that we just render this chat component without any information. And if I don't use any children, like for example, let's add a button inside this, for example, and let's take a look at the web preview. Even though I have a button inside this, it didn't render it, it didn't generate that code within inside this chat component that I created. But if I did something like this, library close live.chat and children, what this code is just gets the children below this tree and renders it within the component. So this is how we put the children inside the custom components. So basically you can see that it's going to be rendered within the app. But like how we render it from the custom code is a little different than this. So this is how we send the code to the custom component that we have generated. So let me bring this back so that's not going to be broken. Simple chat. Okay, so you are already seeing like how we render the component below custom components. Again, we have a wrapper chat, and inside that we have a rendered component. And it's all about knowing React actually, like how React components work. So if you're familiar with that, it's gonna be easier for you to understand, but you don't have to understand it totally. So like everything that you put inside the React component, it is stored in a property called children. So like, for example, when we call this properties, like this, we are deconstructing the props object here by using the curly brackets. And inside from that, we're just getting the children property out of the props, the screen level props. So this is basically like whatever we render within this React component is always going to be under this children. So all you have to do is just go ahead and render it anywhere in your app. For example, if you didn't want to do anything like this, all you could just do is return children. So like you don't have to do anything else to render something else. if you just return the children, it's just gonna render whatever you see on the screen level. But what I wanted is, I just wanted to add some styling to the buttons and some other stuff within code. So that's why I just created this layout and rendered the children inside another component. So that's a little related to the React component, but this is how it works. It's a little clearer right now, Johnny?
Yeah, I think so. But so you added the styling because you can't style the components like normal. Is that right?
The thing is, I could have just created everything that you see here on the screen level, like without I don't and just render the button render children directly from the code. But there was a little trick that I didn't tell you about here, but again, it's about accessing the React parent components. We have got a function called chat, and this chat is inside this component. And for us to be able to call this chat from another screen, we have to implement some type of use ref knowledge. So it's going to be a very complicated thing to implement at this stage. So that's why, in order to call this function from this component, I have to add the button here. So that's why, like, if I want to add this button here, I just want to wrap everything up. Like, these are the stuff that I have to do in the builder side. But just because of this button, I just added the other extra information. These are all the limitations of the, not limitations, but the features of the React that we have to think when we're implementing some custom code. But the basic idea, like if you want to implement something simpler than this component, if you just, yeah, for example, I'm using some authentication buttons, and let me show you a client's app here, and like you can, I, yeah, for example, I've got a Google authentication. We have gone through this in another office hours later. You can just see the details of this information in that video. But again, we have got a custom component, and inside this, we just rendering the children, exactly what we did previously. And here I just have a view and the image for the Google button. And let's take a look at our custom code. And what we do here is, again, I just render the children inside this touchable. I don't want to make it so complicated to you, but yeah, like for example, you can take a look at the code which we're gonna share to you. You can play around with yourself and try to understand it yourself. This is unfortunately how we're supposed to do this.
It makes sense. I'm following you. So thank you.
Go ahead, David.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. It's regarding the third way to implement ChatGPT. You show a Markdown component, and I was wondering what does the Markdown component add to this? Because I literally right now have a text input that I use to create a brief from ChatGPT, and I was wondering if the Markdown component helps me to add, for example, emojis or that stuff, or if it's just in the case that you used it for the code because there's a specific like style applied to it.
As long as the ChatGPT response includes a Markdown language, like the Markdown language has some special characters. So if ChatGPT wants to return, like, for example, when I ask the ChatGPT to tell me a joke, it just sends me back a simple text. But when I ask something that it has to create some kind of styles, it automatically returns the result in a Markdown language format. So it's automatically handled. But what you can do in order to be sure that, like, after like taking the command of the user, at the end of that command, you can add the words, like, for example, return the result in a Markdown language. So you can be, this way you can be sure that ChatGPT will always return the results in a Markdown language, so that you can use it in your code with the Markdown component.
Okay, thank you. So the Markdown, if I understand well, will be clearer for people to understand because we can add the bullet points or the stuff, right?
Exactly. This is, but we're not going to do anything about the styles. Like ChatGPT generates all those styles for us, and just Markdown just shows it.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Any other questions?
Thank you, David. I think we don't have any other questions regarding
The chat.
GC integration. Deborah had a question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much again. My question is not as high level, and so I apologize in advance to everyone on
No,
here.
all is fine.
I'm
All
just
is
getting
fine.
started.
Really
I have created create your account page. I've done the authentication with Google, Facebook, kind of like you just showed there for them to sign up. My question is, how do I get them from that page of signing up, creating their account to my actual subscription page? What is the functionality there?
You're asking me, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking me how to navigate between screens from the custom code, right? Or
Okay, let me say it this way. I'm trying to determine, in layman's terms, how do I get, once they create their account, so I have the page that, like you just showed there, they can use Facebook, Google, or an email, or Apple. Once they do that, what gets them to the actual subscription page for them to now pay and get inside of the app? Like, so right, how do we get from here to the subscription page for them selecting which subscription they want?
okay, so I assume that like you have a like a screen for login with the
Yes,
button for Google, and you also have another screen for your subscription. So
correct, correct.
first thing first, let me show you like if it's a single login for the emails. So on
Okay,
your login button, once you make your queries, for example, this is again clients app, but we make some conditional checks, state checks, and everything. And if everything is successful, you make a check whether uh, we make a check if, like for example, login successful. We use the navigate action to send them here. So, for example, in this scenario, if the login is success, if the login is not success, we just stop there. Like if there's an error message, we don't want to do anything. We just show the error message and stay in the screen. But if the login is success, we make another, for example, in this scenario, we check whether they completed their profile or not. So if they have not completed their profile, we use this navigate action to send them to the complete onboarding screen. Otherwise, send them back to the home screen. This is how we do it from the builder side.
okay,
Is this clear?
yes, uh-huh.
And for example, for the Google like custom code navigation, for example, again, we have a custom code for Google. And here we have to send the navigation objects like this navigation. Let me format the code so it's going to be more visible. The navigation is going to be props.navigation. You don't have to worry about how, like it's always on the documentations and the community. But if you want to access your navigation library from your custom code, that's how we send it to the custom code. You just send the props.navigation, and from the custom code, for example, this is our Google login, and like here we get the navigation, and from that moment, oh sorry, navigation that navigate to that screen is going to let you to go to that screen. So this is how it works. There are tons of documentation that you can take a look at our community and in our documentations that might help you in your custom code.
Can you tell me what's the best search terms that I could use to get to that? What would you suggest?
I
Community.
I can send you via intercom if you like.
Okay, okay, thank you.
okay, do you have any other questions?
Is that anybody or is that Deborah?
Please go ahead, Jenny.
I have a question, and I think I sent it to Ramesa, but I think you misunderstood my question. So while we're here, I just wanted to ask.
Sure.
I was trying to. So you gave me the like on server error method when I'm doing a fetch to get the error, but I was doing like a API call with like a put method, and I was trying to extract the error message from Xano where it has like precondition and then it sends back a message. But every time I tried to extract it, would either return an object like with as the name of the result of the API call, or it just wouldn't extract the message at all. So I was trying to figure out why that is or what's happening.
It's going to be hard for me to answer this question from just words. Maybe, Mesa, is it possible for you to send me the Johnny's question so that I can take a look at it after our meetings? Maybe I can be helpful.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and I can get you back from Intercom, Johnny.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Any other questions?
Do we have any other questions? If not, then I can, and I think we can wrap up the session. Thank you very much, Safa, for taking the time to demonstrate the OpenAI API integration with Draftbit. Really, your contributions just enrich our community and empower our users, I guess, to explore new features and tools, right, within Draftbit, using Draftbit. And thank you all for attending and for your questions. And we're going to post this on YouTube. So you should be able to see the recording there. But apart from that, we are going to also give the repo link, right? GitHub repo and the custom code that custom component code in the community as well. Yeah. So that you can just apply it in your projects.
Exactly.
Thanks to Safa.
And thank you everyone for being here and for your time. Thank you for listening to us. And yeah, just, oh, go ahead, Larry.
My apologies. But thank you so much. Shukran.
Shukran. Thank you. Okay, we don't have any other questions. Again, thank you all for your contributions and see you in the next office hours. By the way, for the next office hours sessions, we're planning to focus on revenue cat integration and also dynamic styling and other cool stuff that you might interested in. So keep your eyes on community. Yeah, Davey. Thank you for suggesting that in the community feedback page. And if you have any suggestions or topics that you are interested in office hours, so please go ahead to our feedback and ideas page in the community and post them there. Thank you again and see you in the next office hours. Until then, see you and happy building.
Happy building.
Bye.